me. So we are right smack dab in the middle of a 5-part series where we've been exploring the 5 main areas of language development in our kiddos. We've talked about semantics or vocabulary development. We've talked about syntax, which is that sentence development. And today we're going to be talking about morphology, which means the smallest units of meaning. It's going to be a great one, so don't go away. Welcome back, Lingaroo Troop. Great to have you with us today. As I said, we are in this 5-part series. Hopefully you've caught the first 2 videos that we've done. But today we're going to be talking about this idea of morphology or meaning. Morphology sounds a little bit more intimidating than it is. It's actually those smallest units of meaning. For example, when we say book, we have one book. Or if I say books, and I put the little x on the end there, the little s, that makes it now more than one book. It's the plural s, the possessive s. It is the verb endings. If I say today I walk, I am walking. That means, that tells you, my listener, that I'm doing it right now. So by changing those last little endings or adding those last little bits to the word, we change the meaning. And as you know, and as I know from working clinically with kiddos, this is hard. This is hard stuff for our kids. So today we're going to be talking about kind of a deeper look at some of these areas of morphology or meaning, both in our kids' understanding of language and in their output. And we're going to be diving in and giving you some just practical strategies of how you can be working to support this at home in your everyday activities. If you're kind of late to the party and joining us, I'm a speech pathologist, and none of this is to replace that formal speech therapy. If you're concerned about your kiddo, we have videos about action steps to take and how to get them help through formal clinical speech language therapy. But these are just some strategies of, okay, what can you incorporate into your home? What can you do in the context of bath time or getting your kiddo dressed or maybe bedtime routine and you're going to read a book? And how can you address some of these within the context of everyday life where language comes to life? Again, this morphology, it's that plural s, that possessive s. This is Daddy's book. That z on the end told you or told me that it belongs to Daddy. Pronouns are also in this. He, she, I, you. And we know sometimes our kids have trouble kind of sorting out those pronouns. Those are the subject pronouns or kind of the doers. He is walking. She is eating. But there are also the objects or the receivers of actions. There's the give it to him, give it to her, or, and give it to me. So those all change, but then there's this wacky you, where I would say you are walking, and then I also just keep it the same to say give it to you, right? So English is confusing, isn't it? Like some of these rules that just trying to teach them to our children and trying to teach them and help them sort out when to keep it the same or when to change it, it can be really confusing. So we're going to be talking about that along the lines of confusing pronouns. Then there's the myself, himself, herself, right? Those reflexive pronouns. And I know a lot of adults that we still have trouble with this one, right? Of when to say I or when to say myself, and it's confusing. So we're going to be talking about that today as well. So let's talk about some of the difficulties that we see in our kiddos when some of these concepts or some of these meanings, units of meanings are not coming in yet or still developing in our children that might clue us in as to whether or not your child's having difficulty. When you say, go get your shoes, and they go maybe and pick up a shoe, one shoe, they kind of miss the z on the end of that plural ending. They may know that they need to get one toy when actually you wanted them to pick up all of the toys, right? And you added the plural, but they missed it. Or maybe it's that possessive and you say, you give a child a cup and you say, here, this is Daddy's cup. And they take the cup and they look at Daddy and they know who Daddy is, but they've missed that meaning piece. They've missed that piece that, oh, this cup belongs to Daddy. Or if you expand on that and you say, give it to him. And they're like, him? And they're kind of looking around like, who am I supposed to give this to? It's because that pronoun is a little shaky. That pronoun of him, they're not sure who that represents in the room. Also expressively, as they start to form sentences and put words together, you might start hearing them making some errors in this. You might hear them leaving off those endings entirely. They may just say book instead of books, or they may say cup instead of cups. And the tricky part about this, and we've talked about this before as it relates to speech sounds or phonological errors, and actually our next video in this series is going to go even deeper into that. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but sometimes our kiddos just leave that ending off of everything. And it's hard to tell, okay, is this a speech sound or a phonological difficulty that they're leaving those ends off of everything, and that's why they're not producing plurals, or that's why they're not producing those endings? Or is it truly the meaning assigned to them that is confusing or that they don't yet understand? Let me give you an example. As I said, if they're leaving off that plural s or that possessive s or that d, you know, if I painted and they've left that ending off, it may not be that they don't understand past tense. It may be that they're leaving the sounds off of everything. It may be that they're also saying ba for ball or buh for book. So trying to kind of tweeze this out, and certainly enlisting the help of a speech language pathologist to kind of determine, okay, what's what here? Is this just leaving all the sounds off, or is this kind of housed in this area of meaning that they don't understand what those markers mean and how those markers affect the meaning of their output? You may also see errors in verb tense, right? I just talked about past tense, talking about how tricky English is. Sometimes that ed that we add to mark that it's in the past, that it's already happened, sometimes that makes a T sound. Yesterday I walked, and you hear a T at the end. Or you could say, yesterday I played. Okay, well now it just sounded like a D sound. Or, as I said earlier, yesterday I painted, and it's a whole new syllable that you're adding. I painted. And again, trying to teach our kiddos when it's a D sound, when it's a T sound, when you add another syllable, can be difficult. It's also difficult for some of those irregular past tense, right? Today I eat, yesterday I ate. Well, that didn't use any of those rules, the T or the D or the syllable. We changed the whole word. And so a lot of times what you'll start to see is an overgeneralization of this rule. So your kid might say, yesterday I eated. And that's good. They're learning that past tense rule. They're learning that adding of that ED. They're just trying to figure out when and when not to use it. Some other errors are pronoun errors. Again, you know, the he's and the she's and separating that out. Or we also see sometimes some IU confusion. And sometimes kids will refer to themselves as you. And that is, I will tell you, a less common, a less developmental difficulty that we would see, and certainly can be indicators of more difficulty if you're seeing that IU confusion. And if that's the case, you'll definitely want to get an evaluation from a speech pathologist and kind of look more deeply into that. But so these are all the areas that we see, both receptively or in a kiddo's understanding of directions that contain these units of meaning, but then also their expressive or their output, and how we may or may not see some of these skills emerging as they start putting words together. So now we're just going to take a quick look at just some hands-on strategies, again, that you can incorporate into your everyday world. I think one of the best things that you can do is to just talk about it, to talk about and explain and to directly teach some of these concepts. You know, so often I think we kind of expect kids just to get it, and oftentimes they do, but sometimes I think kiddos need just a little bit more explicit teaching. let me tell you what I mean. These pronouns. If we're talking about daddy and he says she or her, we'd say, well, actually we say he, because daddy's a guy. He's a man, so we're going to call him he. And you can talk about, is he a boy? Is he a girl? And then explain that, oh, that's a girl. So over here, she. We're going to say she because she is a girl. And just kind of outright teach these things to our kiddos. Or you could say, oh, I said ing. Did you hear mommy? I said ing on the end. I said, I am jumping. Because I'm doing it right now. Here I go. I am jumping. And you're reiterating or marking that past tense. So I played. Did you hear mommy? I put a d on the end because I already did it. That's something we did yesterday. And so, again, just explicitly teaching these things and explicitly explaining. Can you say explicitly explaining? I think that's a little redundant, but you know what I mean. Just talking to your children, telling them these rules and kind of exploring with your kiddo some of these language rules and when not to use them. A second thing that you can do is to incorporate books. And we talked a little bit about book usage in the last video when we looked at sentence structure, but one thing I kind of want to drive home about these books too, we talked about it being more of an experience, more so than the need to like read it straight cover to cover and get through the text of the book. Just talking about the pictures and talking about the storyline, incorporating the he's and the she's and oh, they, and we're going to give, look, she gave it to them. And you're exploring the language around this book as much or more so than actually reading the text. Another thing that's really important that I didn't mention last time was this idea of bringing this book to life and the concepts that you're exploring in the two-dimensional realm, right? So the two-dimensional flat pictures, you have the two-dimensional world, and then bringing that into the third dimension, three-dimensional. So now we have this guy and he's jumping. We had somebody on the page who was jumping, and now we're gonna make him jump, and he is jumping. And then, guess what we're going to take it? We're going to take it to the fourth dimension. We're going to incorporate your kiddo and his three-dimensional body, but then we're going to have him moving, right? So if we're looking at location concepts in the book, that two-dimensional, spot is in, he's behind the bush or he's putting it in the basket, whatever those location concepts are. Then we're going to take it third dimension. He's going to go under or he's going to go in the box. And then your kiddo gets to go under. He gets to go under the table. He gets to go in the box. He gets to go behind the couch. So you've gone from this two-dimensional world to three-dimensional objects to fourth dimension where you're incorporating movement in your kiddo and getting them involved. And I will tell you, it's amazing to see how these concepts become more what we would call salient or more understandable when they're seeing them here, there, and everywhere. And they're seeing them across these contexts, and they're getting to see the difference between what it looks like on a page and what it looks like to experience it with these guys, and then what it looks like to experience it themselves, and how quickly they can learn these concepts when we're doing that. Okay, guys, finally, the third thing you want to think about is as you are teaching these pronouns, and I've mentioned this in a previous video as well when we talked about kiddos who are doing echolalia or repeating words. We talked about maybe your kiddo has language delay or language difficulty, and so they kind of repeat you instead of actually answering your question. We've talked about it in that regard, or maybe if a child is on the autism spectrum and they repeat more echoing your words rather than answering. We talked about this idea of incorporating a partner or someone, bringing someone in, whether it's an older sibling or a spouse. Mealtime is a great way to do this. When you're working on pronouns, it's much easier to work on I and you when you have someone and maybe you and your kiddo, maybe he or she's on your lap and you're one partner, you're one team, and you're talking to daddy. And you're saying, oh, here, daddy, let's give it to you. We're going to give it to you, daddy. Oh, and then let's tell daddy, give it to me, right? And so you are modeling and working with your kiddo, with your partner across the space as your communication partner. So you can work on you and I versus if I'm saying, here, give it to me, and I'm, but for him to give it to me, it's actually he would say, I'm giving it to you. Does that make sense? So I and you is tricky when it's just one and one working together to help sort that out. Location concepts, same way, right? If I'm putting him in front of something, well, if I put it in front of the box, he's actually, for my partner, if I'm putting him in front of the box for my child, now he's actually behind the box for me. Does that make sense? So again, if you can incorporate a partner in this, it makes it so much easier to work on some of these things like location concepts and pronouns when you have someone else that can help you model. And again, mealtime, playtime, that's a great way to incorporate some of these things with other people in the room. So guys, I hope this was helpful. If you have questions, I know some of this is a little higher level maybe and a little confusing. Put your questions and comments down below and shoot me a message on Facebook. Remember, my son wanted us to have Translation Tuesday where some of these terms or some of these concepts, we just kind of explain it a little bit more. A lot of these terms and concepts I've been thinking about for decades. So I know it's a little bit harder when you're first kind of trying to get your head around it and understand it. So if I can explain it more, I would love to interact with you, either on that Facebook page or down in the comments below. If you haven't already, click here to subscribe to the channel, click the bell notification icon so you'll know when we upload new content, and then click over here to watch the video where we talked about these 5 areas of language. And I'll see you next time. Lingaroo, where language comes to life.